I'm Diana Pierce.
And I'm Kevin McDowell for Paul Majors. Next on News 11, Minneapolis police literally plowed through a house and have moved to crack down on crack.
The problem of teens using cocaine is growing, and counselors worry about what they're calling designer drugs.
A ravaging rainstorm on the West Coast is taking its toll both in lives and damage.
And Twin Cityans join millions nationwide in remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr.
News 11 is next.
There's a way to cut calories from your sandwich without cutting taste. Cutting your sandwich in half isn't it. Next time, Miracle Whip Light reduced calorie salad dressing. Only half the calories of mayonnaise and just taste all that tangy zip. Miracle Whip Light. We cut the calories. We didn't cut the taste.
When I was a little girl, I loved two things. Dessert and Tommy, what's his name? I got over Tommy. I still love dessert. Well, I have it every chance I get, as long as it's sugar-free Jell-O gelatin. It's all NutraSweet, with only 8 wonderful little calories.
Sugar-free Jell-O gelatin, the dessert you don't have to dessert.
Eat your heart out, Tommy.
In the struggle against rootworms, don't you lose sight of what you're really after. Strong, healthy corn. Corn you know will yield just by looking. Year after year, Thymet insecticide grows fields like these for less money per acre than anyone. And isn't that what you're really after? Thymet. Available from your Cyanamid AgriCenter dealer.
Now, the Twin Cities' most watched newscast, News 11. With Paul Majors, Diana Pierce, Tom Reiter on sports, and meteorologist Paul Douglas.
Good evening. Paul Majors has the night off. Topping tonight's News 11, the walls of a house come crashing down as Minneapolis police use a front loader to make a crack bust.
That's right, it's a new tactic being used in their crackdown on crack.
In the crackdown, police have issued 19 warrants since January 4th alone. They've arrested 32, including one who now faces federal charges. In every house, police found crack and cocaine. As Carolyn Marinan reports, while using the front loader is potentially dangerous, police say they'll take precautions, but in some cases, it's a necessity. The front-end loader plowed into the side of a North Minneapolis building late this afternoon, doing just what police wanted, leaving a gaping hole in the side of the apartment on Golden Valley Road. The unusual method gave them the chance to make a quick entry and raid into what they say is a notorious crack house. Police have tried conventional methods of getting in here, but they say drug dealers are continually making it tougher, with bars on windows and barricades. So police are trying to one-up their targets.
And the amount of reconstruction that they've done inside to keep us out, it was necessary to do two things. We either had to do structural damage to the building or to use explosive entry, which we've done in the past.
Police defend an aggressive assault like this one, saying they take safety precautions. The side rammed here was vacant. Once in, police arrested 3 people, confiscated several $1,000s, found about an ounce of crack, seized guns, police scanners, and portable radios. Right next door, police used only a battering ram to bust through this house on Queen Avenue. Police say the time it took to get in gave suspects more time to dump drugs. Still, 9 people were arrested. Neighbors watched all the commotion from across the street. Many residents have complained. Many say they know just what's going on here.
You see different cars, you see vans with those smoke windows in there, and cars that don't belong here. You know, I know my neighbor's car, I know the people around here, and I know it's not their cars or whatever's going on, and you can see it, they're parked, they're there for 10 minutes and they're gone again.
More than 30 officers raided the 2 houses today, some on their own time, all committed to cleaning up what they say is one of the city's toughest drug turfs. Minneapolis police say there will be a lot more raids like this one on drug houses. And they say with the help of federal money and a continual harassment of drug dealers, the crackdown on crack in Minneapolis will become more successful. Carolyn Marinan, News 11, North Minneapolis.
The method of using heavy equipment to bust into crack houses is used elsewhere in the country. In Houston, police have used bulldozers and drug raids because the building had been fortified. Now the owner of the building in this raid is suing to regain her property, which was confiscated in the raid. She claims she only owns the building and didn't know what was going on inside. The method is used in Los Angeles as well.
Well, cocaine use is a growing problem among teenagers, and while drug counselors are concerned that teenagers often don't know what's in the drugs they take, News 11's Gail Plawacki tells us the kids are willing to take the risk.
Kids today are using illegal drugs. It's an undeniable reality. But why do teens turn to drugs? Chemical dependency counselors say it's often a means of escape. This 14-year-old, whose identity is being protected, says she knows drugs can't solve her problems. Still, she began using them several months ago.
I don't know, sometimes you just can't find other things to do to make you feel better, you know. And sometimes you don't really want to think of your home life and things.
About 30% of the runaways who end up at the Bridge Shelter for Teens are involved in drug abuse. Those who work with these kids worry not only about how vulnerable the teens are when high, but about the dangerous content of the drugs themselves.
A lot of kids are using chemicals that they don't even know what they are. You know, we're talking the designer drugs that are out nowadays. A lot of the designer drugs are nothing more than pure caffeine, and then when they get a hold of something that's really real and they're used to taking more because of this stuff isn't really as potent, they can end up really hurting themselves.
This 15-year-old has been using drugs since she was 12 and often doesn't know what she's taking, but the risk doesn't stop her.
At the time, I don't really care because I just need something to get my mind off my troubles. And I don't really think about it afterward.
Tragically, this teenager says one of the reasons she started using drugs was to better understand her heroin-addicted father. In Minneapolis, Gail Plawacki, News 11.
The chemical still most frequently abused by teenagers, though, is alcohol, and is the cause of more teen deaths every year than all the other illegal drugs combined.
It's been more than a week since St. Paul bar owner Earl Mount Pettit was arrested on prostitution-related charges, but no charges have been filed against him. Police arrested Mount Pettit at this Maplewood motel after he allegedly offered a police decoy money for sex. Mount Pettit owns the Oz Bar in St. Paul, which is the center of a police probe of alleged prostitution involving downtown businessmen. Police are now looking for a link between Minnesota State Representative Kenneth Clute of Moorhead and Mount Pettit. Clute was convicted of soliciting sex from a police decoy last June. In a telephone interview, Clute denies knowing Mount Pettit. He admits being in the Oz Bar 2 or 3 times, but he says he knows no one in the Mount Pettit case.
I just want to get on with my life and try to do the best I can for my family. It's very frustrating to have this come up. I don't know how to deal with it. How do you prove something didn't happen?
Mount Pettit could be charged as early as tomorrow. There is no indication that Clute will be named.
Minneapolis homicide detectives are investigating the cause of death of a man whose body was found in a car. A tow truck operator went to haul the car away from 17th and DuPont South in Minneapolis when he found the body of 36-year-old Terry Lehman inside.
Door up to get the VIN number, and when I opened it up, there was guys laying on the front seat.
Now, the car had been ticketed for being parked in the same location for more than 72 hours. Investigators say Lehman's body was in the car at least for a few days.
Emergency crews in Superior, Wisconsin had to use a bulldozer to help put out a fire on a coal dock. Flames were shooting from an earth mover parked on top of a pile of coal. Firefighters rushed to put out the blaze, worried that the heat might cause the rig's pressurized tires to explode. They used the bulldozer to cover the burning vehicle. Damage is estimated at around $50,000.
Well, tonight a family of 4 is homeless after a fire that lit up the sky. But by unusual fate, they are alive. The flames leaped high into the morning sky as they tore through the Cropper home in North Minneapolis. Neighbors say they heard an explosion before the inferno. Natalie and Tim Cropper and their 2 children weren't home at the time. They had fumigated the house and were staying at a hotel overnight. Well, today the family did return home to nothing more than a skeleton of a house. They were overcome with shock and grief.
A lot of work
I told them that.
It's almost like losing another kid or something, or someone you love, because we worked a lot and we were so proud of what we did.
Apparently the only bright spot, the family's pet, which survived. The cause of that fire remains under investigation.
The official observance of the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. continues tonight with services around the country. In Atlanta today, Coretta Scott King, wife of the slain civil rights leader, attended a church service along with presidential candidates Reverend Jesse Jackson and Paul Simon. After that, a parade with marching bands was held in his memory. In Washington, D.C., school children remember Dr. King with a parade through the streets of that city. Members of the marching bands carried signs saying, "We share the dream."
And tonight, Twin Cityans pay tribute to Martin Luther King in their own special way. At Pilgrim Baptist Church in St. Paul, several congregations joined together to remember King's dream and to celebrate his birthday. Asha Blake has the story.
With music and prayer, Minnesotans remembered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tonight.
The spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his quest for justice continue to challenge us to a deeper discovery of our bonds as human beings.
But besides recognizing new challenges, many tonight remembered the slain leader's fight for justice, the marches against racism, and King's dream for all.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
It was King's vision that each person be judged by his abilities rather than his skin color, and those thoughts and the Reverend's achievements remain in young minds some 20 years later.
He changed this world to black can do everything and white can do everything. The Jim Crow law is gone and now black people can sit anywhere they want.
While King's dream of worldwide peace may not be complete, his followers say the fact that they can all stand side by side tonight is proof that part of his dream has become a reality. Asha Blake, News 11, St. Paul.
Still ahead on News 11, Paul Douglas says we could be in for a plowable snowfall.
Meanwhile, a vicious rainstorm on the West Coast claims some lives as crashing waves tear away at huge buildings.
Officials of Control Data say their problems may be over, but for thousands of employees, it's too late.
And a labor movement that's familiar to us all started nearly a century ago, prompting the most violent strike in Minnesota history.
A lot of accident claims never get a fair hearing because many people think you have to be rich to have a lawyer. But it can cost you plenty to settle your own claim, and you don't have to. At Hyatt Legal Services, we took the fear out of legal fees. Before you sign something you don't understand, come in and talk to one of our lawyers. We'll help you fight for what you're entitled to. I'm Joel Hyatt, and you have my word on it. We took the fear out of legal fees across the country and in your neighborhood.
Iams Cat Food asks, what would happen if cats ran the world? People would average 67 naps a day. Chasing balls of yarn would replace baseball as the great American pastime. And people would have to buy their cats Iams cat food, sold only at pet stores. Because the nutrition in Iams makes a healthy difference you can see and your cat can feel. Iams, special pet foods found only at special stores.
I know, off the couch.
What do farmers have to say about the performance they get with Eradicate?
I was looking for a herbicide that would do a better job than the Lasso that I'd been trying before. I went to Eradicate, and I've had very little trouble. It works when it's wet, it works when it's dry.
We've been having such inconsistent control with the Lasso that my dealer recommended that we try Eradicate. And it was cost us $2 an acre less, and we had excellent control.
For better grass control than Dual or Lasso, farmers like you are switching to Eradicate.
This month, your Greater Metropolitan Pontiac dealers make Grand Am excitement more affordable than ever. This month, you can choose from over 500 new Grand Ams. You can save over $1,300. In fact, with special factory savings, you can now buy a new 1988 Grand Am with air conditioning, tilt wheel, AM/FM stereo, and more for only about $178 a month. Yes, $178 a month. But you must buy this month at your Greater Metropolitan Pontiac dealers.
The Chinese Civil Aviation Bureau says tonight a plane crash in southern China has killed 108 people. The plane apparently was flying from Beijing to Chongqing. A Tokyo News Service reports as many as 23 Japanese were aboard. It's not known yet if any Americans were aboard, and we'll bring you details as they come in.
Filipinos went to the polls for local elections today. It's the first voting session since President Corazon Aquino took office, and that story tops Datelines tonight. Voter turnout was heavy as the more than 80% of the 27 million citizens cast their ballots. Soldiers flanked by heavy military equipment were on guard for any violence. But for the most part, things were peaceful, and early returns show candidates backed by Mrs. Aquino are winning. And at least 7 people are dead tonight from the wrath of an incredible rainstorm that whipped through Southern California. It caused landslides, floods, and power blackouts. You can see the immense waves crashing into beachfront homes, ripping away foundations of huge buildings. One news helicopter had to help rescue 50 guests from an endangered hotel.
Paul Douglas joins us right now, and the question right now is that coming our direction?
Yes, it is, but we are just going to get a glancing blow. The latest computer data suggests that the storm track is going to be just a little farther south and east than we thought, and we'll probably get a couple, maybe 2 or 3, but the heaviest amount staying south and east of the Twin Cities. So I guess a bit of a reprieve. Denver getting smacked around pretty good today. They picked up as much as 5 inches of snow today in Denver. There were numerous truck and automobile accidents on roads in and around the city. Ice caused lots of skidding. There were a number of injuries, but no fatalities. The Colorado State Patrol closed the southbound lanes of Interstate 25 this morning. They're telling people not to drive on Interstate 80 in Nebraska because of blowing and drifting near blizzard conditions. Air travel in and out of Denver's Stapleton International Airport was disrupted for a time earlier today. Things are now getting better. We want to update you on the very latest as far as the storm is concerned. We are under a weather advisory here in the cities. A winter storm watch has been issued by the National Weather Service for southwestern Minnesota, a good chunk of southern South Dakota, and much of northern Iowa, where the greatest potential for snowy problems will be later tonight and tomorrow. How much? We've downgraded it a little. 1 to 3 probably in the metro. Thief River and up towards Fergus Falls, they may not get any snow at all out of this system. The greatest potential for 2 to 4, maybe 5 will come down at Rochester, Albert Lee, and Austin. But again, all this hinges on the exact storm track. A difference of 100 miles either way is going to make a huge difference in the amounts. But right now, the latest data, hot off the wire, suggests that it may not be quite so bad here in the city. It's going to be a lot of wind. Tomorrow's still going to be a raw day, but amounts probably 1 to 3-ish. Our winning weather spy this evening hails from St. Cloud. Sent in a beautiful photograph of hoar frost. That's the same phenomenon we had this morning. He called it severe frosty, thanks to Dean Heitzman. Today, under foggy skies, only 31. That's a good 11 degrees above normal, a low of 15. 1/100th of an inch of that frost accumulated this morning. Cloudy, 29, with a southeast wind at 14. The wind chill 9 below, the humidity high, and the barometer now falling rapidly. From outer space, a couple of things we want to show you. Low clouds and fog over Minnesota. Here come the storm clouds racing northeastward. 2 feet of snow in Durango, Colorado with 4-foot drifts. Again, most of the energy forecast to pass off just to the south of Minnesota. Here's the latest weather map, and you can see that counterclockwise swirl of clouds. There is the storm center showing up very well. But again, right now it looks like the track is going to be St. Louis to about South Bend, Indiana to Detroit. If that is indeed the case, then we would just be on the northern extremities of this storm system. We're going to have to watch it very carefully. Light snow spreading right now into parts of South Dakota. Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Aberdeen. Should be into Alexandria by about 2 a.m. Into the cities, I think, by rush hour. And again, the worst of the snow tomorrow, staying just south and east of Minnesota. We'll update you on the precise forecast for your backyards coming up next.
Spring is only a few weeks away. But relief is only a phone call away. MLT Vacations, we deliver dreams.
Rootworms are the biggest threat to your corn crop each year, and you need the consistent performance of Counter. Last year, tests by universities in the Corn Belt proved that Counter works best. It prevented economic loss to rootworms in 95% of all tests. The next insecticide prevented economic loss in only 73% of the tests. That's a serious performance gap, and you can't afford a rootworm performance gap. Get Counter at your local AgriCenter dealer.
Okay, it's a complicated forecast. Let's crank it up for tonight. Some light snow and freezing rain developing by morning. Could be a slick rush hour. And then tomorrow, the thinking is 1 to 3 inches of wet snow for most of us. A potential for 4 down towards Rochester and northern Iowa. Temperatures tomorrow right around the freezing mark. Most main roads, I think, just wet tomorrow. Flurries on Wednesday. The sun comes out Thursday. Friday, an Alberta Clipper could produce some snow showers with a high up around 30. I want to introduce you to Samson. All 750 pounds of Samson. Samson's trainer, Bill Vergis, they've just driven up from Texas for the 1988 Sportsman's Show, which is going on in St. Paul through Sunday. Everything imaginable for the sportsman. It's out down at the Civic Center. If you're a fisherman, any kind of winter sports involved. Does Samson have teeth?
Oh, sure does.
Good enough for me.
Yeah.
Good enough for me. Samson, thank you. Yeah, I know the feeling. Kevin and I, can you say agent?
Paul.
Just make sure he keeps eating those M&Ms.
Paul, pet the bear.
Huh?
Pet the bear.
Pet the Bear Act? Okay.
No, pet the bear.
Pet.
Oh, pet the bear.
All right. All right.
Yeah, nice
guy.
Gotta go.
Good night. Still to come on News 11, a labor movement that began before the turn of the century.
As the immigrants poured into the Twin Cities for jobs, they begged to differ with those they now rely on.
It fits your needs so well you probably don't even think about it. It's so dependable and such a reasonable value you might not give it a second thought. Yet when all is said and done, it's hard to imagine ever doing business without it. Long distance from Northwestern Bell, a U.S. West company. There's no better way to cover the distance.
Hi.
Folks need a little help? And how will you be paying for that? American Express.
If you stop by our Minneapolis office tomorrow, you can pick up a new card.
I'm having some trouble checking into this hotel.
I can take care of it. Let me just talk to the hotel manager.
Thank you.
A friendly voice in the middle of the night. Membership has its privileges.
Miller High Life presents your great getaway from winter, the Sportsman Show, Tuesday, January 19th through Sunday the 24th at the St. Paul Civic Center, a Sunoco production. Don't miss it.
My friend Joe here and me made a little bet, didn't we, Joe? I said there wasn't a better or safer herbicide out there for soybeans than Commence. Best be tucking this in, partner. And I also bet that it kills velvet leaf, pigweed, all kinds of grasses. It even gets foxtail. But you didn't believe me, did you? Dinner time! Say, didn't anybody ever tell you it ain't polite to eat with your fingers?
One of the earliest civil rights movements in Minnesota occurred before the turn of the century, and it involved a group that wasn't really a minority. Cindy Bricado is here to explain.
Kevin, the movement we're talking about is the drive to establish labor unions, and the people we're talking about were the immigrants who, around 1875, were coming by the thousands to Minnesota to find work. Well, they did find jobs as typographers, carpenters, even cigar makers, but they found problems as well. Whether it was a job in a foundry, an ironworks plant, or a job in a shoe factory, it was a job that sounded good to the Scandinavian and Irish immigrants who arrived in the Twin Cities just before the turn of the century. But once on the job, those immigrants found that the dollar a day they earned kept them below the poverty level. And while working 16-hour shifts, employees had no say about conditions, hirings, and firings. In short, between 1875 and 1900, the time had come for labor organizing. Dania Hall in Minneapolis, in the Seven Corners area, was the place for many of those early labor talks, since many Scandinavian immigrants lived and worked there. On the other side of the river, the stockyards of South St. Paul employed many who were willing and eager to listen to labor leaders.
Basically, what they were powerless, and powerless people who are suffering find somehow an expression of solidarity themselves, and this leads inevitably to a discussion what can be done, what should be done. And trade unionism, labor organization did in fact result.
Those early organizing efforts were moderately successful in creating some unions. This is the charter for Carpenters Local Number 7, the oldest union in Minneapolis, established February 1896. But a group called the Citizens Alliance, a forerunner of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, successfully thwarted much of the organizing by arguing that unions inhibited free enterprise. And the workers themselves blocked the unions. With an influx of immigrants from all over the world, there were always replacements for those who would not work in substandard conditions. So unions in the Twin Cities would be held at bay until the 1930s, when the most violent strike in Minnesota history changed the way we worked. More on that later. Some employers were sympathetic to workers' problems. Pillsbury, for example, decided to establish profit sharing among its workers, but since no one else did, the company couldn't survive economically. So it took a day in May 1934 to change things. And speaking of change, Kevin and Diana, I'd like to change something we reported when we did our story on the Hill archives last week. Those Hill papers do not belong to the St. Paul Public Library, or rather, the privately funded Hill Reference Library.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. And coming up in sports, a surprise resignation in Big Ten football.
And on our Athletes of the Week, a pair of skiing sensations. Tom Ryder is up next.
Are you tired of this?
A sunny holiday is yours with Twin City Tours.
Twin City Tours now offers our lowest rates ever to fabulous Las Vegas. Round trip air from only $169. Complete air and hotel packages from only $219. Take Twin City Tours to Las Vegas.
A sunny holiday is yours with Twin City Tours.
Call your travel agent. Ask about Twin City Tours to Las Vegas.
In spite of the sweeping tax changes, you can actually plan your future tax refund.
Are you serious?
I was not aware of that. Our new W4 service will help you do it.
That's something I'll look into.
H&R Block's planned refund program. For a small fee, they analyze your taxes to plan your next year's refund at the amount you decide.
I think that's just going to be a real important part in my future. I'd like to know this year what's in store for me for next year.
The new planned refund program from H&R Block.
This is the way you can get the refund you want.
The U.S. ambassador expressed his deepest concern.
Compounding problems even further as the strike moves into its way.
Maybe you can't stop the world. But for a week or so, you can get off. Norwegian Cruise Line. The world's best way to leave the world behind.
When you're looking for temporary help in accounting or bookkeeping, you want the best. So we had an independent research firm ask personnel experts which temporary service that specializes in accounting and bookkeeping is the best. Accountemps was chosen first by a margin of 5-1 over the specialized service that ranks second. So for temporary help in accounting or bookkeeping, rely on the experts. Call Accountemps, where second best isn't good enough.
A new baby has given Viking player Keith Millard a reason to celebrate tonight. Keith's wife Sally went into labor during Sunday's big game, and a baby boy, Dustin, was born this morning. Now, father, mother, and child are all doing well in Seattle.
And Tom Ryder's back after spending, a tough few days in Tampa. That must have been difficult.
Pretty long hours.
Yeah.
Chilly. Speaking of Millard.
Chilly.
You know, I thought the guy was kidding me. He's Millard. He wouldn't talk to anybody. I gotta go. My wife's having a baby. Okay, yeah, okay.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry. He was right, and I was wrong. And we have some other news concerning football. Viking offensive coordinator Bob Schnelker told News 11 tonight that he is interested in the head coaching position in Green Bay, but has not been in contact with the search committee as yet. Schnelker, who spent 10 years on the Packer staff, expects to make the first move very soon. Meanwhile, word out of Green Bay is that Schnelker is not a hot candidate. Vice President Tom Bratz is in Mobile, Alabama, interviewing prospective coaches, and told us tonight that they are looking at 6 college and 6 NFL possibilities, but would not comment on Schnelker's chances. The Packers have received permission to talk with Cleveland offensive coordinator Lindy Infante. Bratz hopes to narrow the field to 4 by the weekend and have a coach in place by the Super Bowl. A surprise resignation in college football tonight. The University of Illinois' Mike White stepped down after the team's worst finish since he took over the program in 1980. The Fighting Illini finished the season at 3-7 with 1 tie. In Big Ten basketball tonight, Ohio State Big Ten basketball, the Buckeyes hosting 8th-ranked Michigan. Curtis Wilson pops that three-pointer in right there, and that cut the Wolverine lead to a point. Ohio State tough at home. They're playing aggressive on the boards. Tony White with that bucket right there, and let's see how this game is turning out. As we check the scoreboard, it is late in the ball game. Ohio State leading by 2 points. In other college basketball tonight, Temple with a win over Penn State, and Syracuse rolling over Boston College. In college hockey, the Gophers dropped to number 2 in the national polls this week after losing to Maine last Friday. Maine is now number 1. In the NHL tonight, let's go to the scoreboard, check them out. We have Detroit over Toronto, the Leafs winless in 12 games now. Montreal over Edmonton. In high school hockey, Brooklyn Center leading right now at last word over St.